Welcome back to another Xtreme Book Club video. I think it's about time we got back into splatterpunk, right? If you don't know what splatterpunk is, it is a subtype of horror that is very explicit and in your face with its horror, and subversion of modern horror's subtle and creepy themes. Obviously, this type of horror is not for everybody, and if you are here from the All Tomorrows video, know that this is the type of horror I cover. It is a lot more extreme than that kind of book like All Tomorrows, but I hope you stick around and enjoy anyway, and I thank you all for all the new subscribers from that video. The book we are covering today is one called 100% Match by Patrick C. Harrison III, which is quite the regal sounding name for a splatterpunk artist. But this is a very short book, it's only about 70 pages, but it is quite charming and very classic splatterpunk. It is quite fun and has a decent message, but if you don't know how we do things on this channel, let me break it down for you. We start out with an intro, which you are listening to now, where we discuss the author and a little bit about the book. Then we get into the summary, where we do just that, summarize the book. And then finally we get into the analysis, where we analyze the book and its themes and characters. But before we start, I want to tell you what next book reviews we're going to be doing in the next couple weeks. In 2 weeks, we will probably do a splatterpunk book called Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison, one of the most famous splatterpunk books we could ever cover. And then 2 weeks after that, we will be doing another classical, sad, horror-ish type book with Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. But I want to hear your suggestions for the Xtreme Book Club books we can go over, because I think it's about time I get a suggestion from you guys. I read all the comments, and maybe if someone recommends one and I can look into it and I like it, I can mention you in the video and use your suggestion. But without getting too much more into the intro, let us get into Patrick C. Harrison III's 100% Match. The book opens with a statistic, something you'll get used to in this book. 0.001752% of relationships end in homicide. The main character tells us he is looking for a life partner. However, he is currently in the #1 least attractive occupation to women, a fry cook. But he's trying to upgrade his desirability to women. First things first, he's trying to become a teacher, the most statistically attractive job to women. It's taking him a while though due to an incident in Arkansas, but he assures us, the readers, that that was a complete misunderstanding. He never explains what happened in Arkansas, by the way, but he has a lot of stories that he never finishes, and it's kind of funny that way. He says he's been staring at the ceiling, picturing his perfect match for the past hour. He touches himself as he does it, but he assures us that it is a total myth that post-nut clarity exists. He walks to the bathroom and looks down. He can't even see his own manhood because of his belly being in the way. However, he assures us that 69% of women do prefer the dad bod, so he isn't too self-conscious about his weight. However, he states he does have a little more than a dad bod. He also says that women prefer the average-sized male to be about 6 inches. He measures a bit short of that statistic as well. He looks in the mirror and sees a gleam on his bald head as well as he brushes his teeth. He says that 43% of women find bald men attractive, but not really at his age. He's only 30. He blows his nose and it's globs of yellow and green all over the tissue. He retrieves the Ziploc baggie and puts his snotty tissue in the baggie and puts it next to his wallet and keys. He puts on deodorant and cologne, although he states that a surprising amount of women liked the scent of sweaty men. He puts on his Jim's Burger uniform and he sits down and eats a healthy breakfast. Enough, he assures us, to give him the energy he may need if he talks to a woman today. He forgoes the coffee though because he says it makes one's breath stink and women don't like that. After this, he has some time and says that women like men who know a variety of manly subjects. So he watches a video on how to repair a fuel pump and one on how to make a picnic table. Then he reads a Cosmopolitan magazine about the most comfortable thongs for women. He of course puts on his glasses for this. However, he says that women are largely torn on if glasses are attractive or not. But some like thick-rimmed glasses like his. It makes them feel like the wearer is quirky. He gets all of his stuff, including the Ziploc bag with the snotty tissue in it, and leaves his house. He says that he lives in a nice part of town, if not a little old. He owns his own house, which is extremely positive, he says, because women like men who own their own homes. Though they don't need to know the reason that he got his house was from his inheritance from his mother, who unfortunately drank some cyanide tea on a summer day. What a tragedy. He owns his own car as well, but he's not allowed to drive it, as he got his license suspended after an unfortunate incident with a dead raccoon, some oil, and a trip to Galveston. Once again, never explained, but you can fill in what happened usually in his stories. He says a devastatingly 96% of women want their partner to have a car, but Jim's Burgers is 1.6 miles away, an easily walkable distance. In total, that means he walks 3.5 miles a day, which should make him more athletic, but he doesn't really notice any changes. 63% of women want a man who exercises regularly, so during his breaks he does standing hip thrusts and shadow boxing. He also throws heavy things on occasion, like cats he finds in his backyard, into the street. As he walks, he sees his elderly neighbor walk to the mailbox. "Hello, Bartholomew," she calls out. Bartholomew says yes. That is his name, Bartholomew. Studies show that women like men with short names, so instead he goes by Bart, but his last name is Bartley. He knows it's comical, but he introduces himself finally as Bart Bartley. He looks at his elderly neighbor and thinks she was probably a catch in her youth, but he has no interest in the woman at this age. Besides, studies show that a widow, like her, often holds their deceased spouse in a higher regard to any newer partners. But he says he does fantasize about her every once in a while, and he touches himself while fantasizing, even once at work. As he continues to walk to work, he sees a cricket on the sidewalk, and he crushes it and picks it up with his fingernail and puts it in a separate Ziploc baggie and puts that in his pocket. He gets to work early, because of course studies show that 69% of women prefer a man who is punctual. He turns on the fryer, and the store opens at 10:30. Too early for lunch, Bart figures, but he's not the owner, he doesn't make the say. He explains that Jim is the man who owns the store. Jim once ate a triple cheeseburger that Bart cooked him, and then he had to be hospitalized for a week due to stomach pain. To which Bart says he's surprised that his boss even survived. "Bart, where's Hector?" his boss asks him. Bart says he has no clue. About 5 minutes later, Hector walks in. A hippie-like Hispanic man of about 20 years. Jim yells at the boy for being late, and again threatens him that if he's late again, he will be fired. Hector calls him a dog behind his back and goes over to Bart. "Sup, shorty," he says to him. Bart says he's 5'8", a little shorter than average, but statistically women who are short don't mind shorter men, so he doesn't see his height as a problem. Hector, however, is 6'5", absurdly tall, slicked back hair, lots of tattoos, and fake diamond earrings. He claims to be a real success with the ladies, but Jim says that the way he presents himself wouldn't indicate that to him. Bart says that his tattoos are unattractive, and men and women who have tattoos usually aren't very good life partners. That's just rude, Bart. He says, besides, men and women who have tattoos are often sex addicts, something he is not. He says he can get all the pleasure he wants from the mayonnaise jars in the back. He says he wants his 100% match life partner. Hector calls out to him that he should have seen this chick he was banging last night. But thankfully, Bart thinks someone comes to the drive-thru so he doesn't have to hear the rest of Hector's story. He starts to make the order and finishes up a burger. He takes out one of the plastic baggies and smears the snot on the cheese. He also grabs a mayonnaise jar, but he claims he doesn't know if it's one he's quote-unquote used before. The day progresses as normal, like with him putting a roach in some guy's milkshake and doing his hip thrusts in the break room. Lacey, another one of his coworkers, walks in around noon as he's doing this. Bart says she's slutty and has a newborn kid. Totally not his perfect match, but he has touched himself 32 times to her, even once at the DMV. He gets off at 6 p.m. and walks home from his job. Once he gets to his house, he throws a cat in his backyard into the street and takes a poop into a Ziploc bag and puts it in the fridge next to Mimi, the neighbor's dead chihuahua, which he claims he will use before she spoils. Bart then takes a shower with sandalwood soap, the best smelling scent according to women ages 25 to 35, and gets ready for bed. But before he does that, he shoots the child in his basement. 76% of women can be convinced a gunshot they heard was actually a car backfiring. Bart then explains that he went on a date with a blonde girl once. Even though blonde women are statistically more likely to cheat, he went on a date with one anyway. She wanted to be a doctor, but he knew right away that she would never become one. She wasn't very smart and would mispronounce words a lot, but that doesn't mean she wouldn't be a good life partner, he thinks. She wore minimal makeup, exercised, though not a lot, and didn't smoke or drink or have tattoos. All good things, Bart figures. She wasn't even vegan, which Bart says 100% of vegans are snooty and impossible to please, by the way. He says he took this woman, named Deborah, to Applebee's, a place that is not too expensive and not too cheap. It went well at first. They discussed their job pursuits, and Bart says he built a birdhouse in his backyard. Of course, he didn't mention that he put a mousetrap in the birdhouse, of course, but he did tell her about the birds. She then asked him to divulge a secret he's never told anyone, a sort of an icebreaker for the date. He says he knew he shouldn't have done it, but he figured the date was going well enough, so why not? He mentions the time he went to a nursing home with nothing but a plan, a bearded dragon, and a cucumber, as well as a mallet, of course. Needless to say, she wasn't very impressed, and the date ended poorly. 2 days later, Deborah passed away after getting splashed with acid. How sad, Bart says. 56% of women like men who take risks. Bart goes to work and Hector is once again late, but Jim hardly even yells at him. Bart makes burgers out of Mimi, a surprising amount of them, he thinks, even though the dog was very small. And then after work, he goes to the grocery store where he gets milk, mayonnaise, and a single corn on the cob, and canned tuna. He sees 2 women in the fruits and vegetables section. Studies show that women who spend more than 5 minutes in the fruits and vegetable aisles are 54% more likely to want a family than those who don't. The 2 women there are an elderly Asian woman and a Latina with large breasts. It figures the old woman probably had arthritis, so she can't perform certain actions he wants done to him, and the Latina has no bra on. He can tell through her shirt. To which he said that 67% of women who do that are only looking for sexual encounters and not long-term relationships. So he gets his corn on the cob and moves on. But as he does, he hears a voice from behind him. "Bart Bartley, is that you?" Bart turns around to see his middle school principal. He looks a little older, and Bart says that indeed it is him. The principal says it's been a while, and asks what Bart does nowadays. Bart says, well, he's studying to become a teacher. And the principal says, that's wonderful, Bart. The world needs more teachers, especially in this county. Then there is an awkward silence, and they exchange goodbyes. Bart is surprised that he was so cordial, due to what he found Bart doing in the janitor's closet when he was in 8th grade. Once again, not explained. He then goes to the checkout counter and sees a 17-year-old girl with black lipstick and multiple piercings. He says when he was a teenager, he used to like that kind of stuff, but he figured out that 37% of women who have facial piercings are involved in regular drug use. He walks outside and it's already nighttime. He sees a woman drop her wallet and he quickly runs up to her and picks it up and taps her on the shoulder. "Ma'am, you dropped your wallet." She turns around and looks frightened at first for a second, but then thanks Bart. She says not many people would have given it back. She is heavy-set, but not fat. She is dressed conservatively and wore little makeup. A perfect match, he thinks. She thanks him and calls him incredibly kind and leaves. Bart kicks himself on the way home, thinking that kind of thing happens all the time. He meets someone who could be a life partner and he just doesn't say anything, or he says the wrong things. It reminded him of a time when he was at the county fair and he met a woman selling jewelry. She asked him how his day was and he said, "It's Fat Tuesday," which, although it was, she took it as a slight about her weight. She called him fat himself, and then things ended there. He concludes the story with the fact that 98.3% of women do not like being called fat. After the story, he says he got home after the wallet incident and saw the same cat he keeps throwing into the street. It won't die. He grabs it again and then goes inside to kick it in the face. Then he makes a tuna sandwich. Despite the kick, the cat comes up to him and sniffs the tuna. He gives the cat some tuna, and then he takes the corn on the cob and the cat into the shower with him. The next day, Bart says that 22% of relationships start online, which makes sense nowadays, but a staggering 89% of men or women claim that they have used filters on their photographs, and 56% say that they have lied about themselves on dating profiles. He met a woman named Wendy on one of these websites. She called herself a quote-unquote dark poet, and wrote stuff nearly incomprehensible online. She also mentioned that she was a recluse, and she claimed that the world created a perfect match for everybody. All of this was music to Bart's ears. He texted her for months, and even though he tried to talk to her on the phone, she always declined. He figured it was normal for someone claiming to be a recluse to do that. If only he picked up on the hint right there, he thinks. They talked for months, and he even tried to read her poetry, one of which was about a witch and a vampire making love, which the poem used the F word 17 times, Bart says, even though the poem was only a page long. He didn't really get it, but he just figured that it was over his head at the time. Eventually, he decided to meet up with this woman in Louisiana, which was a 3-hour drive from Bart, but he didn't mind. A surprising 52% of long-distance relationships work out, he says. Besides, nothing said he couldn't move her in with him anyways. When they met at a seafood restaurant, and he realized she looked quite a bit older than her profile's age of 26. She had crow's feet, even. After they exchanged pleasantries, she said she had to come clean about something. Bart figured this was about her age, but then she dropped a bombshell on him. "Bart, I have 5 children," she said. Bart stood there dumbfounded with a fork in his hand. "They're good kids, Bart. I know you'll like them." Bart then threw his fork right down on the table right there and left without a word. She chased him and begged him, but he just drove off without a word. It's a shame, too. Wendy and all 5 of her children died that night when her apartment building mysteriously caught fire. Another artist gone before her time. Bart then woke up and got an Uber to work. He explains that sometimes a cop sits near Jim's Burgers, and he doesn't want to risk driving with a suspended license. He says that 40% of Uber drivers are women. Unfortunately, today was a man. He got to his work and realized that it was Tuesday. Jim's always had a special on chili on Tuesday. Bart started making the chili all while dumping turds into the vat, and once it got a little low after a few hours, he asked Jim if he needed to make more. After all, he did have some of his butchered cat left, but Jim said it would be fine for the rest of the day. Hector then comes up to him and claims that he had 2 girls at the same time last night. Bart says that 83% of men want to have 2 girls at the same time at some point in their life, but he's just not one of them. 18% of men actually do get that chance. So he doesn't fully doubt Hector, just mostly. He then goes to the bathroom and takes another poop in a Ziploc bag. About 30 minutes from the time he gets off, Hector comes up to Bart and says, "There's a girl at the front counter asking about you." Bart tells him to piss off, he doesn't have time for his games. Hector then says, "No, really, she's asking for the bald guy with the glasses. She said you found her wallet or something. Seriously, go get her, man." Bart's mouth fell agape right then, as he stands there with the spatula in hand, 12 burgers on the grill, 2 of which were cat meat. Hector then grabs the spatula from Bart and tells him to get out there and get some of that poo nanny. Bart then walks to the front of the store, and sure enough, there she was, the same lady from the other night. It then comes to him that he has literally poop in a Ziploc bag in his pocket, and he hopes that she can't smell it. "Hi, I wanted to thank you again for last night. I figured you worked here because you had that logo on your shirt and all. I'm Sarah." Bart wonders why she would say thank you for a second time now, but he just stands there as 2 people come up to the counter, and Jim walks out of his office and says he'll take the order. He was previously watching Bart and Sarah with great amusement. Bart finally manages to get out that he is Bartholomew Bartley. She giggles and says he has a funny name. He must have funny parents. Bart agrees, but he doesn't say that they are dead from poisoning and jumping in front of a bus, respectively. She then asks if Bart works tomorrow, and if not, maybe he wants to get a coffee. Bart just stammers, but she seems to get the idea and asks, "Do you like coffee? And if you do, would you like to go to Starbucks, or would you like to go to a local place?" And Bart says that a local place would be good. As he says this, they say their farewells, and Bart just watches her as she leaves. Only 7% of women like to ask the guy out as opposed to the other way around. Bart floats through the rest of his shift and even eats a chili burger without thinking about it. He gets home and listens to a podcast that tells him that first dates at a coffee shop are 78% more likely to go somewhere than first dates at bars. There's no cats in his lawn tonight, though. So he pisses in a coffee mug, warms it up, and puts a tea bag inside. He sends an email to his mayor about his impending assassination in 13 days, and then after, he has trouble sleeping. So he sticks a finger inside of himself and counts to 50. What? The next morning, Bart gets up early to get ready. He eats a breakfast of oatmeal, sliced carrots, and mustard, and then he shaves, brushes his teeth twice, followed by putting on a double layer of deodorant. He says that women do sometimes like a man with a sweaty smell, but usually that's when they're doing manual labor, not because they're nervous about a date. He then watches several videos of surgeries on the web, one of which was an abscess removed from a man's pelvis, and then he brushes his teeth again, and then he finally gets ready. He figures it's worth the risk to drive his car to the coffee shop, as showing up in an Uber would look stupid. He gets in his car, and he's worried it won't start up, lamenting about for the next 3 years that he lost the one due to car problems, but thankfully for him, his car starts right up. Bart explains that he used to work in a coffee shop. Hey, me too. And he says he liked calling himself a barista back then, because despite what they both get paid, a barista is much more refined sounding job than a fry cook. He says that 65% of women drink coffee daily as well, but unfortunately that coffee shop got closed down that he worked at because of the health department finding large quantities of June bugs in the ground up coffee. How sad. Bart then gets to the coffee shop and sees Sarah's sedan in the parking lot. Good, he thinks. Women who drive sedans are 3 times less likely to cheat than those who drive 2-door coupes. Women who drive minivans are statistically the most loyal, but that usually implies needing a lot of room for kids, so a sedan is good enough. "Good morning, Bart," Sarah says as she sees him walk over. He greets her back and sees that she's wearing a yellow sundress, a yellow scrunchie, and yellow toenail polish. They walk closely into the store, and Bart asks how long has she been going to this local coffee shop, and she says for a while now. They walk in, and it certainly smells like a coffee shop. Cinnamon rolls and other pastries line the walls as well. "Have you eaten breakfast, Bart?" she asks. Bart says, yeah, he had a small something earlier, and then he laughs and says he can always go for a second breakfast though, as he pats his belly. Sarah laughs at this. Bart says that women like men who can poke fun of themselves, especially regarding their weight. They go up to the counter, and Bart recognizes the barista. It was a woman whose dog he killed late last year. They get their coffee and food and sit down and make small talk. Sarah mentions that she likes gardening, and Bart says he does too, but he only gardens cucumbers. Sarah laughs and says, well, he must really like cucumber then. They sip their coffee, and Bart mentions how sweet his coffee tastes. She then asks how long he's worked at James Burger's. He says, 4 years now, but he's studying to become a teacher. He then asks what she does for work. She says she's a teacher, an online one. Bart can't believe his ears. She's getting better by the second. What subject do you teach online? He asks, but she dodges the question entirely and says she makes instructional videos. But she asks him, do you have family in the area? This is a good sign, Bart thinks. 94% of women ask about their date's family to see if they want to actually date them fully. Bart says, well, he has no children. His parents have passed away. He had a little brother who died of SIDS when Bart was 12, though he doesn't say the real cause of his brother's death. He then says that he had a grandfather until pretty recently, but he died in the nursing home due to hypoglycemia, though he doesn't tell her about the large vial of insulin he keeps in his dresser either. He has an aunt and uncle that are alive, but they don't talk too much. They continue with their small talk until Bart excuses himself to go to the bathroom and stuffs his crotch full of toilet paper to make it look like he has a noticeable bulge, and he walks back out. He sees Sarah on her cell phone. She asks for Bart's number, and of course he gives it. She then asks, are you off tomorrow too? And Bart says, yeah, I usually only work on the weekdays. Sometimes I pick up a shift on the weekend if I need money though. She then invites him over to her place for the next date, and she said, it's been fun, and she enjoyed talking to him. They then leave, and Bart says, this is perfect. 89% of women who offer a second date are open to officially dating. 79% of women who invite their male partner over they've been on a date with to their house after are open to the idea of sex. Bart is over the moon at how well the coffee date went as he drives out of the coffee shop. Then he hears the sound of sirens, and flashing lights pull him over. He pulls over into a parking lot, and he's terrified. He wasn't speeding or slow stopping. What was the problem? He watches as he pulls over and a thin blonde policewoman steps out of the car. 70% of female officers are more likely to have a domineering type A personality. Although they are half as likely to use force, they are 22% more likely to write a ticket. Thoughts race through Bart's head while wondering if driving without a license is an arrestable offense or not, but even if it isn't, his car will surely be impounded. This will make it embarrassing for him tomorrow either way. He has to think of something. The officer comes up to his car and goes through the normal motions. License and proof of insurance, please, she asks. Bart hands her both and then farts loudly. He says that 82% of women who hear a stranger fart will want to keep contact to a minimum with that person. The officer just looks at him strangely and says, well, Mr. Bartley, I pulled you over because your brake light is out on the passenger side. Relief washes over Bart. He says, oh, he'll go to AutoZone right away and get it fixed. She says that's all, but she'll just run his license real quick and he'll be free to go. Bart stammers, is that really necessary? The cop says she has to do it for everyone she pulls over no matter what. It'll just be a minute. She walks away and Bart quickly gets out of the car and says he can never remember which brake light is which tail light. Can she show him? She sighs and points to it as he gets close. He then says he thought that's what it was. It's probably just disconnected in the trunk. Could she shine her flashlight in there so he can get it fixed? She sighs again and pulls out her flashlight and opens the trunk. She sticks her head in and the flashlight in, and as she says something, Bart quickly grabs a crowbar from the trunk and whacks it down hard on her skull, and it makes a wet crunching noise. She starts to slide out of the trunk, limp, but Bart quickly shoves her in and takes her Glock and her keys. He looks around the parking lot and it's empty. but the street has cars going up and down it near it. He cannot tell if anyone saw, but if they did, no one stopped. He quickly goes over to the cop car and he grabs the nightstick out from it and puts the cop car in park and turns off the lights. He gets back into his own car and drives home. As he does, he hears her scream and kick and bang on the inside of the trunk. Bart sighs. She must still be alive. As he yells for her to keep it down, all of a sudden, bullets whiz past Bart's ear and gunshots fill the car. It's extremely loud and Bart's ears are ringing and on fire. She must have had a second gun. Without thinking, he quickly grabs the first Glock and empties the entire magazine into the back seat. The movement and noise stop. He gets home and then rubs poop all over himself and sticks the nightstick where you think he would in the body of the cop to celebrate a good date for the day. The next day, he drives to Sarah's house. His brake light is fixed, but there are still bullet holes all over, so he parks down the street. He walks up to her house, which was a medium-sized home, and it was covered in pink trim and a beautiful yard. This makes him think that she takes pride in her home, which is ideal. It looks like it's about to storm though, but that's a good thing because 56% of women say they like to get close to their partner during thunderstorms. He walks inside and sees once again she is in a sundress, this time with red and yellow flowers. She has red lipstick on today, which 60% of women say that makes them feel empowered or wanting the attention of a partner or soon-to-be partner. The home smells of lavender and eucalyptus, which doesn't scream romance to Bart, but it's more of a homely smell. "Hello, Bart," she says as he walks in. "Would you like some herbal tea?" she asks him, and Bart says, "Yeah, that would be great." This is good news. People who drink herbal tea are more likely to be health conscious. She asks, "What did you do last night, Bart?" And Bart says, he cleaned up and ate some stew and watched TV, all of which were true, he thinks, but he doesn't say what he did to the officer or what was in the stew. Bart compliments her yard, and Sarah says, "Thanks. I have a beautiful garden out back as well." And she laughs and says she's even growing some cucumbers, but they aren't ripe yet. The teapot then whistles, and she grabs it and puts a tea bag in each cup and hands Bart his. They continue to talk, and Sarah puts on some John Denver at a low volume. Studies show that people who like slower music are more empathetic. Bart yawns, and he asks Sarah about a story about when she went to Alaska. He tries to follow what she says during the story, but he's having a little trouble. It's as if the music was weaving its way in and out of the conversation, and he just can't concentrate. Bart apologizes, but she just waves her hand and says it's okay. Bart tries to remember if he got enough sleep last night after the officer, but he can't remember. His brain is foggy all of a sudden. He tries to focus on Sarah's story yet again, but it's as if all of her words are now garbled and mush. He can no longer stay conscious. 43% of men have reported having their drinks spiked in their lifetime, a surprisingly high statistic. Bart wakes up and feels groggy and awful. He sees a bright light above him and he feels as if he just woke up in the middle of surgery or something. He realizes his hands and feet are restrained as he tries to move them. There he is. He's awake now. He hears from the right side of him. He looks over and Sarah is standing there, but she's no longer in her dress, but a full-body black latex suit, only holes for her mouth and eyes, her lips red as ever. She's wearing a military cap as well. 16% of women enjoy bondage, whether that be giving or receiving. Bart slurs his words and asks, "What's going on?" And Sarah says Bart's lucky. He's been chosen to participate in one of her lessons. Bart can't help but picturing himself naked on this slab. He feels embarrassed and ill. He tries to say thank you to Sarah for allowing him to participate, but he really just wants to go home now. She laughs and shows him a camera that has a green light that indicated it was recording. She holds up a flogger. Bart says, "Maybe they can do this another day or something." But she says, "Oh, I think not." Then she motions to her left, and Bart can see a wall of paddles, knives, surgical tools, and other torture instruments. This was a legitimate torture chamber, not just a bondage dungeon. Bart asks if she plans on hurting him, and she looks into the camera and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to show you how I treat a bad boy. Do you want to see how to treat a bad boy?" Bart pipes up that he thought the date was going great. What did he do to deserve this? She comes closer and throws the flogger aside and whispers and says, "It's just for show. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you're a good boy, a good guy. But I just say that shit for the camera." She then looks at her laptop and says, "Ooh, this one comes from Johnny in Iowa. He wants me to use the funnel of vomit," she says as she takes out a funnel. She sticks the plastic tube in Bart's mouth and sticks fingers down her own throat and vomits into the tunnel as it goes down, and he has to swallow it. It's warm and chunky, but it has nowhere to go. He vomits 3 times trying to get it down, but eventually it stays. She gasps for air and says, "That wasn't so bad, was it?" Bart says, "It was pretty fucking bad." She then smashes his groin with a hammer, cuts off his toes, and paddles and flogs him. Different requests, Bart thinks. She screws screws into his nose, cuts off his privates, and shoves things inside of him. She then rubs poop on him, and he says he would find this ironic after last night if he wasn't in so much pain. The knives come out soon after, and he doesn't last long after that. She explored his insides like a surgeon, and the video probably went on a long time after he was dead. The final line of the book is 0.000000006% of women make a living in the United States by doing snuff films. And that just so happens to be my perfect match. My 100% match. That is it. That is 100% match. This is going to sound strange, but I kind of love this book. It's almost cute in a way. Let me land. I know that sounds strange, but most splatterpunk books are either A, have a message or themes of extremely serious gravity or deep themes, or B, it's just torture for gore and the sake of it. This, I feel, is something a little different. It almost has a positive message? Is the book disgusting? Yes. Is Bart a horrible man and character? Is he a misogynist, a murderer, and probably a lot of other things? Also yes. But at the end, the message is almost a strangely positive one. It is the ever-classic message of, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Or better yet, a better message would be, there is someone out there for literally everyone. It's a sort of feel-good message for all of you single people out there. I'm among you, don't worry. Makima cosplayers, hit me up. Who said that? But it shows that the world, or God, or fate, or pure numbers, show that there's literally somebody out there for you. Even the most disgusting, evil people like Bart there have someone out there that they can be with. If we go a little deeper even, you can even extend this message to say that there are like-minded people out there that you can make friends with. You are not an anomaly. You are not alone in this world. Someone out there has experienced the same things you have, and have the same experiences you have, and have made it through it. There's always someone to talk to and relate to you. No matter how alone you may feel in the world, someone can help you. Which even myself has experienced this feeling quite frequently. So, in a way, this book, despite its contents, gives me a sort of warm feeling inside. Sure, Bart got killed in the end, but it seems that's almost like what he wanted. He says that he found his perfect match, someone just like him. So, no, you are not alone. Romantically, in terms of friends, or even in terms of experiences. Someone out there is just like you and has gone through the same things. So be happy that you are not alone. Thank you for watching. This book is very short, and so is this video, I'm well aware, but I really did enjoy reading and making this video. Next week there will be another movie review, and then the week after will be the splatterpunk book, Dead Inside. And then after that, I have a video game video lined up, and then the week after will be The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which if you like the Xtreme Book Club videos such as Flowers for Algernon or Picture of Dorian Gray, you will like that one too. Thank you all for 80k subscribers, and a serious thank you for all my Patreon supporters. If you want to get your name on screen like these guys you see in the background here, you can find my Patreon in the description, which of course is not necessary, but appreciated. One last thing before we go is that if you haven't seen my post on my channel, for my 100k subscriber special, whenever or if ever that happens, the plan is to make a somewhat big deal about it on the channel. I have lights and microphones ready, and I will be reading an entire book and be giving commentary on an actual set I plan to be making in my house. And yes, that means my face will be on camera as well. So I hope to see you all there, and know that you all mean the world to me. Seriously, words cannot even describe how much you all mean. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.